My phone buzzed on my desk. I was in my small Nashville apartment, surrounded by fabric swatches and vendor contracts. For a moment, I thought it was Caleb from the lighting company confirming the final schematics. It wasn't. A text message glowed cold and blue across the screen. "You're not worthy of coming to my engagement party." It was from my brother, Preston. My only brother. The man whose entire event I had spent the last 3 months of my life creating from scratch. My fingers hovered over the screen. Numb. Worthy. He had used that word. The venue. The catering. The floral arrangements. The custom playlist that I knew would make him smile. It was all me. I had poured every spare minute, every ounce of creativity into this party. Not for money, but for him, for family. He didn't even have the decency to call. He just sent a text like he was canceling a coffee date, not shattering a lifetime of me trying to be enough for him. I stared at the words until they blurred. I read them again and again. I waited for a follow-up text saying it was a joke, a typo, anything. But my phone stayed dark. The silence in my apartment was suddenly heavy, suffocating. That day, sitting in the mess of a party I was no longer invited to, something inside me stopped begging to belong. It just went quiet. For 3 exhausting months, Preston's engagement party was my entire world. It lived in my head, on spreadsheets on my laptop, and in piles of samples that took over my dining table. I wasn't just an event planner. I was a sister trying to build the perfect memory for her brother. I thought that if I made this day perfect for him, maybe they would finally see me. Maybe they would finally value me. Preston wanted something that felt like Nashville, classy but with heart. I found the perfect venue. A rooftop terrace overlooking the Cumberland River with a stunning view of the city skyline. I spent weeks negotiating with the owner to get the date he wanted. I remember Preston's voice on the phone when I told him I'd secured it. "You're the best. Elle. I knew you could do it." Those words felt like sunshine. I held on to them, replaying them in my mind whenever the stress became too much. I didn't just book things. I designed them. I met with a local artisan to create handcrafted wooden centerpieces for each table, etched with his and Savannah's initials. I worked with a florist to design floral arches that used wildflowers native to Tennessee, a nod to our childhood spent running through the fields behind our grandparents' house. I tasted dozens of cake samples and sat through hours of catering presentations to build a menu that was a mix of his favorite Southern comfort foods and her more refined modern tastes. Every single detail was a piece of my heart, a testament to my love for him. I did it all for free, brushing off his offers to pay. "It's my gift to you," I'd said. I wanted to give him something that wasn't just expensive, but priceless. Then Savannah, his fiancée, started to get more involved. At first, it was small comments. "That shade of blue is a little dated, don't you think?" Or, "Are we sure about barbecue sliders? It feels a bit common." I tried to be accommodating. I found a different shade of blue. I added more upscale appetizers to the menu. I told myself this was normal, that she just wanted her day to be perfect. The real shift happened about a month before the party. Savannah called me for a quick chat. She said she wanted to go over the guest list. I pulled it up, ready to take notes. "Everything looks great," she said, her voice smooth and sweet. "But we're trying to cultivate a certain vibe for the evening. You know, a bit more exclusive. Just our absolute closest friends and family." "Of course," I said. "I totally understand." There was a slight pause. Then she said it. "So, we were thinking maybe it would be better if you didn't come to the party itself. You'll be there setting up, obviously. But as a guest, you just don't really fit the vibe." The silence that followed was deafening. I couldn't form a word. Didn't fit the vibe. I created the vibe. I was the architect of the entire evening. I finally managed to stammer. "Savannah, I'm Preston's sister." "I know. And we love you for all the work you're doing," she said quickly, as if that solved everything. "But this is about our friends. It's complicated. I'm sure you get it." I didn't get it. I hung up the phone, my mind reeling. My hands were shaking. This had to be a misunderstanding. Preston would never let this happen. I immediately called him, but he didn't pick up. I called my mom, Constance, my voice trembling as I explained what Savannah had said. I expected outrage. I expected her to say, "I'll call Preston right now and sort this out." Instead, there was a long, weary sigh on the other end of the line. "Oh, Ilara," she said, her voice laced with disappointment, but not at Savannah. At me. "Don't make a fuss. It's their day. Savannah is the bride, and we need to keep her happy. Just be the bigger person." The bigger person? That's what I was always told to be. Be the one who understands. Be the one who doesn't cause trouble. Be the one who quietly accepts being pushed aside. Tears pricked my eyes. "But Mom," I whispered, "I planned the whole thing. How can I not be there?" "It's not about you," she said sharply. "It's about supporting your brother. Now I have to go. Let's not speak of this again." The line went dead. I felt a familiar coldness spread through my chest. It was the feeling of being utterly alone in my own family. An hour later, my dad, Richard, called. For a fleeting second, hope surged through me. Maybe he was calling to defend me. He wasn't. "Ilara," he said, his voice businesslike, skipping any greeting. "Your mother told me you were a little upset. You need to get over that. Now, listen. I'm looking at the registry, and there's nothing on there that feels substantial enough from us. I think we as a family should all pitch in and get them a proper gift. I want you to contribute $3,000 for their honeymoon fund. It's important we show family unity." Unity. The word was a punch to the gut. They were demanding a $3,000 show of unity from the family member they had just disowned from the celebration. I couldn't speak. I was frozen, holding the phone to my ear as he continued to talk about the importance of appearances and family solidarity. Unity apparently didn't include me. It was just another word for my silence, my compliance, my money. I hung up the phone without saying goodbye. I walked over to my desk and looked at the seating chart I had spent a week arranging. There was a table for my parents. A table for Savannah's parents. Tables for all their friends. There was no seat for me. I hadn't forgotten to add one because I always assumed I would be there with them. I had never imagined a world where I wouldn't be. For the next few days, I tried to function. I put on a brave face and continued my work. I told myself it didn't matter. It was just a party. My mom was right. I needed to be the bigger person. I would hand over all my notes, make sure the vendors were prepared, and then quietly disappear on the day of the event. I would do my duty. And then I would go home and pretend it didn't hurt. I answered calls from the caterer about final head counts. I sent emails confirming delivery times. I performed the role of the planner, pretending my heart wasn't a bruised, aching thing in my chest. I tried to stay composed. I told myself that their cruelty was a reflection of them, not me. I repeated it like a mantra, hoping that if I said it enough times, I would start to believe it. But it's one thing to be told you're not wanted in private. It's another to see the proof displayed for the whole world to see. The final blow came on a Thursday night. I was curled up on my couch trying to lose myself in a movie, anything to silence the looping thoughts in my head. My phone buzzed with a notification. It was an Instagram tag from my cousin Brittany. My heart gave a hopeful little flutter. Maybe it was an old family photo. A peace offering. I tapped on the notification. The picture that loaded wasn't from the past. It was from right now. A group of men were crowded into a booth at a downtown Nashville bar, laughing with beers raised in the air. In the center was my brother Preston, wearing a ridiculous sash that said groom to be. Savannah was there too, sitting on his lap, smiling brightly at the camera. It was his bachelor party, a joint bachelor and bachelorette kickoff. It seemed. I stared at the photo, my blood turning to ice. I recognized the bar instantly. Of course I did. I had booked it for them 2 months ago. I remembered the conversation with Preston. He had wanted a place with live music and a private room. I spent a week calling different venues and I found this one. A cool speakeasy-style place that I knew he would love. I had even negotiated a deal with the manager for a private section for his friends. I did that. That was my work. And there they all were, his friends. Her friends. My cousin Brittany, all celebrating in a space I had secured for them. And I hadn't even known it was happening. No invite. No text message saying, "Hey, we're doing this tonight. Sorry. It's just a small thing." No mention at all. Nothing. I tapped through Brittany's story. More photos. A video of everyone taking shots, shouting to Preston and Savannah. Another picture of the group. And this time, I saw my dad in the background laughing with Savannah's father. He was there. My own father was at the party I didn't know about, The same man who had demanded $3,000 from me for family unity. I felt the air leave my lungs. This was more than an oversight. This was a deliberate, calculated erasure. They weren't just excluding me from the main event. They were erasing me from the entire story. I was the ghostwriter of their celebration. The invisible labor. The family secret who did all the work behind the scenes. I was useful for my skills. For my time. For my connections. But I, as a person, as a sister, as a daughter, was not wanted in the room. It was a profound and public humiliation. It wasn't just that I wasn't invited. It was the realization that my absence didn't even register to them. They were all smiling, laughing, having the time of their lives in a world I had helped build. And not a single person seemed to notice or care that I wasn't there. I thought back over my life. And suddenly a pattern of memories clicked into place like a series of painful locks. The family vacations where Preston got the window seat and I was squeezed in the middle. The Christmases where his gifts were always more extravagant, more thoughtful. The school events where my parents cheered loudly for his football games but left after my debate club presentation. It had always been this way. I had just been trying so hard for so long to pretend it wasn't true. I thought if I was helpful enough, cheerful enough, successful enough, I could earn my place. But looking at that photo on my phone, at all, they're smiling, oblivious faces. I finally understood. My worth in my family was not something I could earn. It wasn't up for negotiation. It had already been decided. And I had been placed on the outside. It was more than betrayal. It was a clarification. It was the moment I decided I was done. I was done performing for their approval. I was done setting the stage for people who wouldn't even give me a seat in the audience. I closed the app and for the first time, I didn't feel sad. I felt a strange, cold calm settle over me. I was done fighting. The next morning, the cold calm had morphed into a heavy, suffocating fog of confusion and pain. I couldn't think straight. I couldn't work. I kept seeing the smiling faces from the photos, hearing my mother's dismissive sigh, reading my brother's cruel text over and over again. I felt like a fool, a naive, hardworking fool who had wasted so much love on people who saw her as little more than a function. I texted my best friend, Harper. "Coffee? I need you." Her reply was instant. "Always. Music Row Shop in 20. Sitting across from her in the cozy warmth of our favorite coffee shop, the smell of roasted beans, a comforting blanket. I felt the dam inside me break. I unloaded everything. The words tumbled out of me in a messy, desperate rush. I told her about the months of planning, the late nights, the joy I had felt creating something beautiful for Preston. I told her about Savannah's phone call, her voice dripping with false sweetness as she told me I didn't fit the vibe. I told her about my mother's command to be the bigger person and my father's demand for money. My voice cracked as I described seeing the bachelor party photos, the gut-wrenching realization that I had been completely and utterly erased. When I finally ran out of words, I just sat there stirring my cold latte, staring at the swirling pattern of milk and coffee. I felt raw, exposed, and deeply ashamed. I had let them do this to me for years. Harper didn't say anything for a long time. She just listened, her eyes fixed on mine. Her expression was a mixture of deep empathy and simmering anger on my behalf. She didn't offer empty platitudes like, "I'm sure they didn't mean it," or "they'll come around." She knew my family. She had seen the small cuts and slights over the years. She knew this wasn't an isolated incident. It was a grand finale. When I finally paused, looking down at my hands, unable to meet her gaze, she spoke. Her voice was quiet, but it cut through the noise in my head with absolute clarity. "You signed every contract for this party." "Right, Alara?" she asked. "The venue, the caterer, the florist, etc." I looked up, confused by the question. "Yes." I nodded. "Most of them. I'm the point of contact for everything. It was just easier that way." She leaned forward, her eyes intense. "They didn't just ask you to plan a party," she said. "They made you the legal and financial backbone of the entire event. You're not just the planner. You're the one responsible. You hold all the cards." I hadn't thought of it like that. I had only thought of my emotional pain, my feeling of powerlessness. I had been so focused on what they had taken from me that I hadn't considered what I still held. "So what?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper. "What does that even matter? I still have to finish the job. It's my reputation." "No," Harper said firmly. "Your reputation is for being an amazing planner who is professional and kind. Your family is treating you like an employee they don't have to pay or respect. This isn't about your reputation. This is about your self-respect." She reached across the table and put her hand over mine. Her touch was grounding. "You've spent your whole life trying to get them to love you, Elle. You've twisted yourself into pretzels trying to be what they want. You built them this perfect, beautiful party to prove your worth. And what did they do? They told you you're not worthy of even attending. They are telling you loud and clear who they are. You need to listen." I felt tears welling up again. But this time they were different. They weren't tears of self-pity. They were tears of recognition. She was right. "Walk away," she said, her voice now soft but absolute. "You don't owe them your pain. You don't owe them your talent or your time. You don't have to fight for a seat at a table that was already poisoned. Let them have their party without the one person who actually built it." Her words struck me like lightning. It was such a simple idea, yet it felt revolutionary. Walk away. I had been so consumed with how to fix the situation, how to endure the pain, how to win back their approval, that the option of simply leaving had never occurred to me. The idea was terrifying, but it was also freeing. It was an exhale I didn't know I had been holding in for 28 years. I didn't need to make a scene. I didn't need to yell or cry or demand an apology that would never come. I just needed to leave. I could choose myself. For the first time, maybe ever. I could choose myself over their comfort, over their expectations, over this broken idea of family I kept trying to save. "You're right," I said, and the words felt solid and true in my mouth. I hold the power. A small, real smile touched my lips. It felt foreign, but good. I wasn't a victim of their choices. I was the architect of my own. That night, I went home with a sense of purpose I hadn't felt in my entire life. The fog of hurt had lifted, replaced by a cold, clear certainty. Harper's words echoed in my mind. Walk away. For so long, walking away felt like giving up. Now I understood it was the ultimate act of taking control. I sat at my desk. The same desk where I had received Preston's text message just days before. The piles of contracts and invoices were still there, but they no longer looked like symbols of my effort and love. They looked like chains, and I was about to break them. I opened my laptop and drafted a new email. My hands didn't shake. My heart didn't pound. I felt a steady, quiet resolve. The recipients were Caleb, the head of the rooftop venue, Elena, the caterer, and Marcus, the florist. They were the three main vendors, the pillars of the event. I had built a good relationship with all of them. They respected my work. The email was short and professional. I didn't pour my heart out or list my grievances. I refused to give my family the satisfaction of making me look emotional or unstable. Subject: Stepping away. Preston and Savannah's engagement party. Dear Caleb, Elena, and Marcus, I am writing to inform you that due to personal family reasons, I am stepping away from my role as the planner and primary contact for Preston and Savannah's engagement party, effective immediately. All signed contracts and agreements will of course be honored from my end regarding payments made to date. For all future logistics, planning, and day of coordination, you will need to contact my brother Preston or his fiancée Savannah directly. I have copied them on this email. Thank you for your professionalism and wonderful work so far. I wish you the best with the remainder of the event. Sincerely, Elara Bennett. I attached Preston's and Savannah's contact information, took a deep breath, and hit send. The moment it was gone, a profound sense of relief washed over me. It was done. I had resigned, not from a job, but from a role I had been forced to play my whole life: the fixer, the peacemaker, the one who absorbed all the family's dysfunction and tried to make it look pretty. Within 10 minutes, the replies started coming in, but not from my family. They came from the vendors. Caleb from the venue wrote, Elara, I'm so sorry to hear this. You have been the glue holding this whole thing together. Please let me know if there's anything I can do. To be frank, Preston has seemed completely out of his depth in our few interactions. Elena, the caterer, too, replied, Oh, no. Elara, your vision for the menu was the only thing making sense. I have a dozen questions that Savannah couldn't answer last week. This is not good. And Marcus, the florist. Are you sure? We built the entire floral arch design based on your specific instructions. I don't think they even know what a peony is. Preston isn't ready for this. Their words were a balm on my wounded spirit. These professionals, people I respected, saw my value. They knew what I brought to the table. Their validation was a quiet confirmation that I wasn't crazy. I wasn't overreacting. I was essential to this event, and I had just walked away. I closed my laptop, a small, wry smile on my face. I had done my part. The rest was up to them. Then a new idea, wild and exhilarating, sparked in my mind. Why just walk away from the party? Why not walk away from all of it? From Nashville? From the constant pressure? From the possibility of them showing up at my door to demand I fix the mess they had created? I opened my laptop again. I didn't go to my email. I went to an airline website. My fingers flew across the keyboard. I didn't search for a sensible, close-by destination. I typed in a place that represented everything my life was not: warmth, beauty, distance, and peace. Honolulu. I found a one-way ticket leaving the next morning. It was expensive. It was impulsive. It was the sanest thing I had ever done. I entered my credit card information and clicked purchase. The confirmation page loaded. Bright and certain. I was going to Hawaii. I stood up and looked out my apartment window at the Nashville skyline. The city I loved. But I wasn't running from the city. I was running toward myself. My phone started buzzing on the desk. Preston's name flashing on the screen. Then Savannah's. Then my mom's. I watched it vibrate. The frantic calls were a prelude to the chaos I knew was about to erupt. I didn't answer. If they wanted chaos, I thought they could handle it without me. The drive to the Nashville airport was surreal. My phone, which I had switched back on out of some morbid curiosity, was a constant vibrating brick in my purse. I didn't look at it, but I could feel its frantic energy. It was a physical manifestation of the chaos I had unleashed by simply choosing to remove myself. At the security line, I dumped my keys and phone into a gray plastic bin. Preston's face flashed on the screen with an incoming call. I ignored it and walked through the metal detector. As I sat at the gate, waiting for my flight to board, I finally allowed myself to look. It was like watching a building collapse in slow motion. One text message at a time. The first texts were from Preston, and they were angry. Where are you? The lights are flickering in the main hall. Caleb from the venue is asking for you. He says you're the only one with the lighting codes. Alara. This isn't funny. Answer your phone. Call me now. Then came the messages from my mother. Constance. Hers started with a tone of forced calm. The one she always used when she was trying to manage a situation before it became a public scene. Alara. Darling. Preston is trying to reach you. Please call him back. The catering staff seems a bit confused. Alara. I'm serious. Elena says the servers don't have the final table assignments. You can't just disappear. What is the meaning of this? People are arriving and nothing is ready. You are embarrassing this family. And then the mask of civility dropped completely. Alara, please fix this. I read the word please and felt nothing. It wasn't a genuine plea. It was a demand from a person who had run out of options. She wasn't asking for my help. She was demanding my compliance. My father's calls started next. I let them go to voicemail. The transcriptions popped up a minute later. Alara, this is your father. Whatever childish game you are playing, it needs to end now. You have made your point. Now come down to the venue and do the job you promised to do. You're the only one who knows what to do. I could picture him perfectly, standing stiffly in his suit, his face red with a mixture of anger and humiliation. He wasn't worried about me. He was worried about what his friends were thinking, what Savannah's wealthy parents were whispering. He was worried about the appearance of family unity he had lectured me about. As my boarding group was called, a new string of texts came through. This time from my cousin Brittany. Oh my God, Alara. Where are you? It's a disaster. Lol. Savannah is literally crying in the bathroom. My mom is asking if you're sick. The casual lol felt like another small twist of the knife. Even in the middle of a catastrophe, Brittany saw it as entertainment. I was just a character in her evening's drama. I boarded the plane and found my window seat. I settled in, my backpack under the seat in front of me, my purse on my lap. The phone buzzed again. It was a text from Preston. It was different from the others. The anger was gone, replaced by a raw, pathetic desperation I had never heard from him before. I need you. For a single, agonizing moment, the old Alara surfaced. The fixer. The sister. The girl who had spent her entire life trying to be needed by him. A wave of guilt washed over me, so strong it almost made me stand up, grab my bag, and run off the plane. I could fix it. I probably still could. I could call Caleb and walk him through the lighting system. I could text Elena the seating chart from my phone. I could salvage the night. I could be the hero. And maybe then they would finally appreciate me. The flight attendant's voice came over the intercom, instructing everyone to switch their devices to airplane mode. I looked down at my phone, at my brother's last desperate plea. I thought about the text he had sent just days before. You're not worthy. He didn't need me. He needed my labor. He needed my skills. He needed the part of me that was useful to him. He had made it perfectly clear that the rest of me, the actual person, was not welcome. My thumb moved across the screen. I didn't put it in airplane mode. I held down the side button until the option to power off appeared. I swiped right. The screen went black. I leaned my head against the cool plastic of the window as the plane taxied down the runway. I felt the powerful thrust as we lifted into the air. And I watched the sparkling lights of Nashville shrink into a tiny, distant constellation. The city I had poured my heart into The family I had tried so hard to please, it all just faded away beneath the clouds. I was alone, suspended between the sky and the earth. And for the first time in my life, I felt the profound and terrifying peace of being completely untethered. When I landed in Honolulu, the air that hit me as I stepped out of the airport was a revelation. It was thick and warm, heavy with the sweet smell of flowers I couldn't name, and the clean, sharp scent of salt from the ocean. It was the opposite of the recycled, sterile air on the plane. It felt like freedom. It felt like a real physical place, a world away from the digital chaos and emotional turmoil of Nashville. I took a shuttle to a small, simple hotel a few blocks back from Waikiki Beach. I didn't want a fancy resort. I didn't want to be waited on or entertained. I just wanted a quiet room where I could be alone with my own thoughts. After dropping my single backpack on the floor, I changed out of my travel clothes and walked towards the sound of the ocean. The sun was beginning to set, painting the sky in fiery shades of orange and pink. The beach was still dotted with people, but the energy was calm, relaxed. I slipped off my shoes and walked onto the sand. It was softer and finer than I had imagined, cool against the soles of my feet. I walked to the edge of the water, letting the gentle waves wash over my ankles. The water was warm, like a bath. For the first time in what felt like a lifetime, my mind was quiet. There was no buzzing phone demanding my attention. No mental to-do list of tasks for other people's happiness. No guilt churning in my stomach. There was only the rhythmic sound of the waves, the vastness of the sky, and the solid feeling of the earth beneath my feet. I had spent months orchestrating noise, music, chatter, the clinking of glasses. Here, there was only a profound and healing silence. I sank down onto the sand, wrapping my arms around my knees, and just watched the sun disappear below the horizon. A few tears slid down my cheeks, but they weren't tears of sadness or anger. They were tears of release. I was grieving. I was grieving for the family I wished I had, the brother I thought I knew, the parents whose love I had always craved. But underneath the grief, there was a new feeling, a small but persistent flicker of something else. Peace. I whispered the words to the waves, my voice barely audible. I choose peace. Over the next couple of days, I explored. I walked for miles with no destination in mind. I ate fresh pineapple from a roadside stand, the juice dripping down my chin. I found a quiet cove and floated in the turquoise water, feeling weightless. One morning, I took a bus to the Valley of the Temples. Nestled against a lush green cliffside was a stunning replica of a Japanese temple, the Byodo Inn. It was serene, a place of deep tranquility. As I was admiring the giant golden Buddha inside, an elderly woman who worked there approached me. She was a local with a kind, wrinkled face and a warm smile. "You look like you are a long way from home," she said gently. "I am," I admitted. We started talking. I didn't tell her my whole story, but I told her I was there to escape a painful family situation. She nodded, her expression full of a deep, Knowing wisdom. Her name was Malia. She told me she had seen many people come to the temple with heavy hearts. We carry the weight of other people's opinions of us, she said, her voice soft like the wind chimes tinkling outside. We think if we try harder, they will see our light. But you cannot force someone to see the sun. They must be willing to open their eyes. Her words resonated deep within me. I had spent my entire life trying to force my family to see my light. As I was leaving, she placed a gentle hand on my arm. When people reject your worth, she said, do not argue. Do not try to convince them. Let silence prove it. Your silence and the life you build with it will be the only answer they ever need to hear. I thanked her, my heart full. She had given me a gift. She had put a name to the path I was already on. I wasn't running away in cowardice. I was choosing a powerful, dignified silence. I was choosing to build a new life, one where my worth wasn't up for debate. I was letting my absence speak louder than my words ever could. If this story touches you, please subscribe to the channel and share the video to help me grow. 3 days after I arrived in Hawaii, I was sitting in a small coffee shop in Haleiwa, a surf town on the North Shore. I had finally turned my phone back on, but I had blocked my family's numbers. The silence was blissful. I was starting to feel like myself again. Or perhaps for the very first time. I was sipping a macadamia nut latte and reading a book when a text from Harper came through. Check your email. I wrote something. I hope you're okay with it. My heart beat a little faster. I opened my email and found a link to an online magazine, a popular lifestyle and culture site. The headline of the feature story read, "The Ghost Planner, when families expect women to be a service, not a guest." There was no byline with Harper's name, just, by a special contributor. I started to read. The article told the story of an anonymous event planner in a southern city. It detailed her months of tireless, loving work on a major family celebration. It described the rooftop venue, the handcrafted details, the deep personal investment. It then recounted, in spare, devastating prose, the phone call from the fiancé, the mother's plea to not make a fuss, and the father's demand for money. It described the final humiliating blow of being excluded from pre-party celebrations. It didn't use names or exact locations, but the details were so specific, so true, that reading it felt like looking in a mirror. It was my story, Harper wrote with a fierce, protective clarity. She didn't paint me as a helpless victim. She portrayed me as a competent, loving professional who had been systematically devalued. The most powerful part of the article was the end. The planner, Harper wrote, faced with the undeniable proof that her love was conditional and her presence was disposable, made a choice. She did not scream. She did not fight. She did not beg. She simply resigned. She sent a polite, professional email and walked away, leaving the perfect world she had built to stand or fall on its own. Her story is not one of revenge. It is a quiet story of self-respect, It's a reminder that a woman's value is not determined by her utility to others, and that sometimes the most powerful thing to do is to refuse to be invisible. I finished reading with tears streaming down my face. Harper had taken my mess of shame and pain and turned it into something powerful and dignified. She had given my story a voice, a meaning beyond my own hurt. I scrolled down to the comments section, my finger trembling. There were hundreds of them, and they were still pouring in. A woman wrote, "This made me cry. I am the ghost planner for every holiday, every birthday, every single family event. Thank you for putting this into words." Another comment said, "To the planner, wherever you are, you're my hero. You did what so many of us only dream of doing." And another, "This should be required reading for every family that takes one person for granted. Thank you for showing what self-respect looks like. I'm sharing this with my sister and my mother and my daughter." On and on it went. Men and women from all over the country were sharing their own stories of feeling used, of being the designated family fixer, of being loved for what they did rather than for who they were. The article was going viral. My private humiliation had become a public anthem for the undervalued. For the first time, my story wasn't a source of shame. It wasn't a secret wound I had to hide. It was a spark. It connected me to thousands of people I would never meet. Sitting in that coffee shop thousands of miles from home, I had never felt less alone. Harper had given me my voice back, and that voice was now part of a chorus. I stayed in Hawaii for 2 weeks. It was the most peaceful, restorative 2 weeks of my life. I learned to surf badly. I hiked to waterfalls. I ate my weight in fish tacos. By the time I boarded the plane back to Nashville, I felt like a different person. The hole in my chest, the one that had been carved out by my family's neglect, had begun to fill with something new, a quiet, unshakable sense of my own worth. When I walked back into my apartment, it was exactly as I had left it. The swatches and samples from the party were still on my table. I looked at them, not with pain, but with a distant, clinical detachment. They felt like artifacts from another person's life. I unblocked my family's numbers, not because I wanted to talk to them, but because I knew I had to face the aftermath. The flood of notifications was immediate. Dozens of missed calls, voicemails, texts. I listened to the voicemails first. My mom's were tearful and manipulative. "Elara, I don't know what we did to make you do this to us. Your father and I are just devastated. Savannah is a mess. You've ruined your brother's happiness. Please, just call me so we can fix this." She wasn't sorry for what they did. She was sorry for how my reaction made them look. My dad's messages were different. He tried to be stern, but it was laced with a new, unfamiliar desperation. "Elara, this has gone on long enough. We need to have a family meeting and sort this out like adults." He wanted to restore the old order, the one where I knew my place. Brittany had sent a text that was the epitome of a non-apology. "Hey. Sorry things got so crazy. I had no idea you weren't invited to the party. We missed you." The casual, "We missed you" felt like an insult. I deleted them all without replying. They were playing the same old song, but I was no longer dancing. A few days later, I met Harper for dinner. She looked at me from across the table, a knowing smile on her face. "Hawaii looks good on you," she said. "It was everything I needed," I told her. "Thank you for the article. You have no idea what that meant to me." "I had a feeling it would resonate," she said. "But you haven't heard the end of the story." She leaned forward, her smile fading into something more serious. "There's a twist." "What is it?" I asked, my stomach tightening slightly. "Savannah broke off the engagement," Harper said quietly. I stared at her, speechless. I had expected them to be angry, to maybe give me the silent treatment for a few months. I had never imagined this. "What happened?" I finally managed to ask. "The party was an absolute, unmitigated disaster," Harper explained. "Everything you predicted. The lighting failed. The food was served cold. The wrong music was played. Savannah's parents were horrified. It became this huge public embarrassment for them. But the final nail in the coffin was the article. It went so viral in Nashville that someone eventually connected the dots. People started whispering. Savannah couldn't stand the humiliation. She told Preston that the whole fiasco revealed a deep ugliness in his family that she wanted no part of. She gave him back the ring last week. I processed her words slowly. Their empire of pride, their carefully constructed image of the perfect, powerful family, had collapsed. And it wasn't because I had sought revenge. It wasn't because I had exposed them. It was because the truth had simply come to light. The foundation of their relationship was so brittle that one night of things not going according to plan was enough to shatter it completely. I waited to feel something. A surge of joy. A satisfying sense of vengeance. Guilt. But none of it came. I just felt a deep, profound, and final sense of peace. Their drama was no longer my own. Their collapse was not my victory. And it was not my fault. It was simply the natural consequence of their own choices. I was finally, truly free. In the weeks that followed, something incredible began to happen. My professional email inbox, which had been silent for 2 weeks, began to ping, and then it pinged again, and again, until it was a constant stream of new messages. The viral article, which I thought had just been a source of personal validation, had become the most powerful marketing tool I could have ever imagined. The story of the anonymous ghost planner had made its way through creative and corporate circles in Nashville and beyond. The first email was from the owner of a new luxury wedding venue. "We read the story about your experience. Your integrity and professionalism, even when describing a difficult situation, are exactly what we are looking for in an exclusive planning partner." Another came from the marketing director of a major music festival. "We are looking for a lead event producer for our VIP experiences. We need someone who is We have a feeling you might be that person. A boutique wedding brand. A corporate event firm. A charity gala. They all reached out. They didn't just want to hire an event planner. They wanted to hire me. They wanted the woman from the article. The one who valued her work. And more importantly, herself. My name, Alara Bennett, was no longer just a name on a contract. It stood for something. It stood for resilience, for creativity, and for a quiet, unyielding strength. It was a brand I had built not with floral arrangements and seating charts, but with a single powerful choice: to walk away. I politely declined my parents' repeated attempts at a family meeting. I sent Preston a single short text message telling him I was sorry to hear about the engagement, but that I wished him peace. I knew that forgiveness might come one day, but reconciliation required them to change, and I couldn't build my future waiting for that. That night, I sat in my apartment, the same one where I had felt so trapped and invisible just a month ago. It felt different now. It felt like mine. I lit a candle and opened a journal I had bought in Hawaii. On the first clean white page, I wrote, "He said I didn't deserve his party. Turns out I didn't. I deserved the world." A soft breeze came through the open window, carrying the distant sound of Nashville music. For a moment, it felt like the ocean breeze, a whisper from the island that had given me back to myself. My phone buzzed on the table beside me. A notification from a new client. And this time, I didn't reach for it right away. I let it wait. I closed my eyes, took a deep breath, and smiled. I was finally in charge of my own event, and it was called my life.